Luther Libilo, who is the first Deputy Secretary General of Africa Mayibuye movement. We are also joined by Africa Mayibuye Deputy President, Comrade Robert Nwendo, who's also the President of Mausa. We have Comrade Tsepo Mahanu, Dr. Nozi Dube. We have also amongst us, joined by the heads of administration, Comrade Nompumelelo Nene. We have also lastly joined by Comrade Mkhanyisi, who's also the President of the Youth Movement, and the Secretary General of Africa. We are also joined by Comrade Mkhanyisi Mbengeni, who is also from Students' Movement. Thank you for the correction. We are a fully fledged Africa Mayibuye movement. That is why we are moving with speed. Every department has got its own head and a leader. We have the Secretary of Gauteng, the hosting province, Comrade Sosko. And then we have the Secretary General of Africa Mayibuye movement, Comrade Spepile Cypren Mahlaba. That is the leadership of Africa Mayibuye movement who joined us here today. A full complement of leadership of Africa Mayibuye movement. Let's give each other a round of applause. Thank you very much. I'm now taking this moment and welcoming to the podium the leader of Africa Mayibuye movement, a great teacher of our time, a great teacher of the left politics on the African continent, who took pride in making sure that the people understand why we are here and why we exist as the left movement. Comrade Floyd Shivambu.
No, thank you very much, National Chairperson of Africa Mayibuye movement. We want to greet the national officials of Africa Mayibuye movement. I think the only apology from the officials we have is of the deputy chair. Want to also greet the leadership of provinces that is here today, the leadership of the regions of the Africa Mayibuye students movement, youth movement, and women's movement. Want to greet and acknowledge members of the media. And most importantly, want to greet and salute the people of South Africa. We are honored and humbled today that you have set aside the time to listen to the leadership of Africa Mayibuye movement. That the last time we spoke to the people of South Africa through a press conference was on the 5th of September 2025, where we announced the formation of Africa Mayibuye movement as a political organization forming part of the broader 21st century liberation movement, fighting for total freedom and emancipation now. We act on behalf of and for the people of South Africa, Africa Mayibuye movement is a true product of the people of South Africa. And everything we do is for the benefit of the people and not ourselves as leaders. We are volunteers in the cause for true freedom. Our collective resolve is that none of the political parties that exist in South Africa today is a true representative of the people. That is why more than 60% of eligible voters did not participate in the general elections in 2024. Just above 16 million South Africans casted their votes in the 2024 general elections, despite the fact that there are more than 40 million South Africans who are above the age of 18 and are eligible to vote. We have, since the 5th of September 2025, gone to the ground to villages, townships, towns, informal or unrecognized settlements to constitute and induct final leadership structures at provincial, regional, and sub-regional levels. Our mandate and objective remains solid, consistent, and sound. Africa Mayibuye movement is a people's movement and a total liberation and emancipation movement, fighting for total freedom and emancipation now. Africa Mayibuye movement is fighting for total political freedom and emancipation now. We're fighting for total economic freedom and emancipation now. We're fighting to achieve cultural freedom and decolonization now. We're fighting to build a capable developmental state and to be a caring and responsive people's movement. Amongst the many core objectives that define the Africa Mayibuye movement, primary is the objectives to equally redistribute the land to all the people of South Africa so that land ownership reflects the demographics of South Africa, meaning that if black people are 80% of South Africa's population, they must own 80% of the land. As objective number 2 is that there must be equal distribution and access to all the natural resources and wealth, including the mineral and marine resources, that indigenous communities must be given access to the mineral resources through small-scale mining. Fishing rights must be available to all the communities alongside the ocean. Our other objective is to pursue full industrialization and build an internal capacity to produce all the goods and services for domestic and global consumption. That we must build factories to manufacture goods and services. The other objective is full and holistic decolonial free education and training of all the people of South Africa, where no one must exit secondary education without a tangible skill. The other objective is to create full employment and jobs for all the people of South Africa who need jobs irrespective of age, because there's a phenomenon now to exclude those that are above the age of 35. Our other objective includes agrarian reform to guarantee food security and development of the food economy chain, modernizing farming with irrigation, seeds, and markets, and to support smallholders to produce food. Our other objective is to realize full development and maintenance of public infrastructure in all areas of South Africa. Our other objective is to recognize and respect traditional and royal leadership with the aim of integrating legitimate traditional and royal leadership into governance systems without compromising equality, transparency, and responsiveness. Our other objective is to recognize and respect all religious leaders in all spheres of society. The phase, ladies and gentlemen, people of South Africa, where the movement is at now, is the phase or the stage of establishing structures of Africa Mayibuye movement with the aim of ensuring that our organization exists in all provinces, regions, sub-regions, wards, and all the voting districts. We are in Mayibuye phase. We are in Mayibuye stage. And we are doing very well thus far. There is no organization in the history of South African politics that has gained as much momentum in a very short space of time than Africa Mayibuye movement. There is not a single organization that has got to achieve presence in all the sub-regions, all the local municipalities of South Africa in a far much faster and clearer period than Africa Mayibuye movement. We are the ones the people of South Africa have been waiting for. As we said on the 19th of June when we announced the consultation process, we are not an association of corrupt individuals. Africa Mayibuye movement is not a stock fail. Africa Mayibuye movement is not a cult. We are a movement, a people's movement that has found solace in the hearts and minds of the people of South Africa. Whilst we are establishing structures, we have not buried our heads in the sand to ignore the different political and societal developments that are taking place in South Africa. We are one with the people and we can see and hear the every pulse of our nation. We want to take this opportunity to note and commend, appreciate the work that is being done by Parliament and the Madlanga Commission in inquiring into the serious problems that confront our society, particularly in the South African police service and the entire criminal justice system. Our objective assessment thus far is that there is no one, both in the parliamentary inquiry and the Madlanga Commission, who has believably challenged or invalidated the factual statements of Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi about the wrongdoing in the South African police service and the entire criminal justice system. His truths remain strong and remind us of the honesty needed in serving the people of South Africa. There, however, seems to be many people who collaborate with and assist these criminal elements. And these include leaders of political parties and members of parliament. Some act like they are on the side of justice and transparency, whilst at night they plot and plan on how to rescue those that are behind the wrongdoing in the SAPS and the criminal justice system. While we appreciate the necessary work of the ad hoc committee and the commission of inquiry, Africa Mayibuye movement believes and therefore demands that the same energy and dedication given to allegations of crime and wrongdoing in the state must equally be directed to the urgent developmental and socio-economic issues facing our country. Commissions of inquiries and ad hoc committees have happened in the past, including the Marikana Commission, the Falan Commission, the so-called state capture commissions and ad hoc committees, and nothing was done about the outcomes of those commissions. Despite billions of rands and thousands of hours spent on these commissions, our people on the ground remained in poverty, joblessness, homelessness, and hopelessness. Mayibuye believes and therefore demands that the same energy, enthusiasm, time, money and determination that is given to these commissions and inquiries must equally be placed on inquiring about the developmental and socio-economic conditions of our people. Parliament and government must put in place commissions, inquiries, and ad hoc committees to investigate the conditions of farm workers in South Africa. Parliament and government must put in place commissions, inquiries, and ad hoc committees to investigate the conditions of mine workers in South Africa. Parliament and government must put in place commissions, inquiries, and ad hoc committees to investigate the conditions of domestic workers in South Africa. Parliament and government must put in place commissions, inquiries, and ad hoc committees to investigate and resolve the conditions of workers employed in the extended public works and community workers programs in South Africa. Parliament and government must put in place commissions and inquiries and ad hoc committees to investigate the conditions of security guards, most of whom work for more than 12 hours. Parliament and government must put in place commissions to look into the crisis of unemployment in South Africa. There has to be dedicated enthusiasm to investigate the high levels of crime, particularly murder, in certain townships in South Africa. There has to be a commission to look into the black poverty question, because the 31 years of the so-called democracy have demonstrated that the black poverty question has not been dealt with. Parliament and government must put in place a commission of inquiry and ad hoc committees to investigate the systematic and systemic exclusion and marginalization of women in mainstream economic participation in South Africa. There has to be dedicated focus on the causes of gender-based violence. There has to be clearer attention paid on the position and functions and roles of traditional and royal leadership in South Africa. Parliament must look into the extent and impact of illegal and undocumented immigration into South Africa. What is the extent and what do we do about that? The same enthusiasm that is given on what appears to be palace inquiries should be given on issues that are going to change the living conditions of our people. We do not and we will never undermine the importance of revealing wrongdoing in the South African police service and criminal justice system. Yet we believe that the same energy and enthusiasm demonstrated in the so-called State Capture Commission, Madlanga Commission, and all these inquiries must be equally dedicated to the lives and livelihoods of our people. Now, comrades, ladies and gentlemen, just as a historical view, in the year 1929, the whites-only racist colonial government of the Union of South Africa established a Carnegie Commission on the poor white question. So the government, the whites-only government, worked with the Dutch Reformed Church to investigate in a commission of inquiry the question of why are white people poor, in particular the Afrikaners. And they did research, they received submissions from communities, received multiple recommendations, policy interventions, and of course for their own purpose. But in the ultimate end, the policies and the interventions that followed the Carnegie Commission on the poor white question permanently resolved white poverty in South Africa. So we can give multiple examples all over the world where public representatives are concerned about the conditions of the people, are concerned as to how do we drive industrialization. Before Japan industrialized, before South Korea industrialized, there had to be commissions as to how do we pursue massive industrial development from being a country which was possibly at the lowest barrel of the global economy. And after those commissions, they were able to follow proper industrial development. So, whilst we appreciate accountability from those that are involved in wrongdoing in the SAPS, it can be that all the energy and enthusiasm is dedicated to that, and we forget about things that are going to change the lives of our people. We therefore, as Africa Mayibuye movement, call for the establishment of a commission of inquiry into black poverty in South Africa, because there clearly seems to be no solution. Absolute poverty amongst black people since 1994 has never been under 50%, where more than 50% of the black population live under the poverty line. All the areas where black people stay in the townships, in the informal or the so-called informal but the unrecognized settlements, in the villages, there is no government at all. There is no industry, there is no jobs, there is no adequate healthcare facilities. And as compared to the colonial settlers or the descendants of colonial settlers, black people are poorer, white people, the percentage of poor white people is less than 1%. In terms of unemployment, black unemployment in South Africa is always above 37% in the official definition and above 45% in the expanded definition. But white unemployment has never been 10%. And those that are not working is because they choose not to. Life expectancy of black people is 10 years lower than the life expectancy of white people in South Africa. And it can be correct that black people are dying because it is the will of God. It's because there is no proper health care facilities and systems and institutions that look after black people to live longer. So we, as Africa Mayibuye movement, are calling for a dedicated commission of inquiry into the black poverty question in South Africa. Let's talk about this. Let's get the submissions. The last time there was an attempt to do so was in the process to develop the Reconstruction and Development Plan, which was deeply consultative and involved civil society submissions and community participation. And before it could even take shape, the government, the neoliberal government of the ANC, had imposed a neoliberal economic strategy called the Growth, Employment and Redistribution Strategy. And since then, in 1996, government policy and developmental strategies have always been dictated by elites without the involvement of the people on the ground. I mean, how do you go to Harvard University? How do you go to Columbia University, like the current president did this week, to go and consult Joseph Stiglitz from Columbia University in America about the poverty question in South Africa? That person has never been to Skukune. That person has never been to Malamlele, has never been to Getleng Refuge, has never been to Umhlaba Lingan. That person doesn't know the real conditions of the people, but becomes authority over government as to what are the challenges that are confronting our society. We're calling for an organic and systemic inquiry into the black poverty question so that we can collectively resolve the black poverty question and stop focusing and stop the excitement on palace politics that do not change the price of bread, that do not change the fact that our people remain waterless. Ladies and gentlemen, our country is still defined by so many challenges. We spoke about the joblessness and all the crises that confront our society. One of the unforgivable areas of lack and shortage in South Africa is on the question of water, basic access to water. You still have so many areas in all parts of South Africa which do not have access to drinkable, safe, and clean water. Despite the white government of the DA claiming to be the best performing in the Western Cape, we still have places in the informal settlements or the unrecognized settlements of the Western Cape that do not have water. We still have many areas in the Eastern Cape, in Mthatha, in Ngoma, Butterworth, in Ituja, that still do not have water. We still have many places in the Northern Cape that do not have water. In all the regions, in Namakwa, in John Taule, Gaitsewe region, in Francis Bard, in Solplaatje. Here in the province of Gauteng, we still have areas that do not have dependable access to water. In Mpumalanga, there are still so many areas that do not have access to water. In Bombela, in Emalahleni, in Kwaguka, there are still areas that still do not have access to water. In the province, in Limpopo, we still have even Polokwane city with recurrent water disruptions. The villages in Giyani do not have water. Almost all the villages that border the Kruger National Park are still waterless and are forced to share water with animals in all parts of our country. We've got multiple crises in all the municipalities. Crime is not being controlled in a clear way. The areas where murder rates are very high continues to occupy the same space, despite government knowing that there is illegal firearms and violence in Inanda, in Kwamashu, in Mulazi, in Nyanga, in Langa, in Mfuleni, the township in the Western Cape, in Marikana, in all the areas that are the top 30 murder stations in South Africa. There's never been a significant shift in the past 10 to 20 years. Government is aware that there is serious levels of crime in these areas and nothing is being done about all of those issues. Now, we still have a crisis in South Africa of huge multinational companies that continue to steal our mineral resources in huge volumes. You know, you must go and check the rubble of soils that have been taken from beneath the Bojanala area in Northwest Province. You drive for kilometers and what you see is rubbles of soils after they dug the platinum group metals, after they've exhausted everything, they just leave the rubbles there and go to the communities around the platinum belt in Rustenburg. Go to Marikana, go to Moinoi. You realize that the conditions of our people are nowhere close to better. The Richards Bay Minerals, which is owned by Rio Tinto in KwaZulu-Natal, continue to exploit the natural resources, the rare earths in KwaZulu-Natal, and has been refusing to pay what is due to the hosting communities of the Richards Bay mineral areas because they are treated with disdain everywhere. And that is reflective of how traditional leadership in the whole of South Africa is being treated. That traditional leadership is relegated to tokens. The same way religious leaders are being treated with disrespect by government, which wants to introduce laws to micromanage religious institutions, in particular churches. And that is one thing that Africa Mayibuye stands opposed to. And despite all these crises that we're talking about, South Africa still has a debt, skoleti, more than 5.6 trillion. So the biggest expenditure of the current government is on debt service costs at more than 380 billion. Where the money which South Africa pays to repay the debt that was created by this government is more than the money which is spent on basic education. It's more than the money that is spent on health care, on police, on all the basic needs of our people. And despite that reality, last week, the South African government went to accept another loan from the World Bank of 16 billion rand. It might sound simplistic, but how do you borrow 16 billion when you are paying 380 billion to people that you owe every year? Because that 16 billion that you are borrowing is going to be drowned into the other payment, and this side you are remaining with the interests. It doesn't make sense. Why is the South African government still piling up the debt, which they've got no obligation to repay? It's us as this generation, it's us as the future government of South Africa who will be confronted with such debts. Why is the Ministry of Finance, the incompetent Ministry of Finance and National Treasury, piling up debts from the World Bank, which comes with conditionalities and conditions that will compromise our developmental agenda and program? Now, comrades, the solution to all of these crises that we're talking about is to build a progressive developmental state and pursue industrialization as set out in the Restoration Manifesto of Africa Mayibuye movement. There is no path to full development and economic prosperity that will happen without industrialization. And in pursuit of such industrialization, we should, as South Africa, pay particular attention to countries in the BRICS Plus bloc. That includes Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, of course, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia. But as things stand, South Africa has got no sound bilateral relations and sustainable, proper economic relations with majority of these countries. Majority of foreign missions don't even have ambassadors or trade facilitation people who can say, we can import something from South Africa to you so that we can create jobs in South Africa. Everything since the establishment of the GNU is on a standstill. Ambassadors are not being appointed. It's acting everywhere. And in many instances, such disrespects the hosting countries. We are emphasizing that we need to deepen our economic relations with the progressive countries of the world. And we want to pay particular attention to the People's Republic of China. The People's Republic of China has got more than 1.4 billion. So if you were to be given an industrial project to supply finished goods and products to China, you can create a lot of jobs here. Majority of provinces in China are bigger than the whole of South Africa. If you were to package and process food in South Africa, you can get a market in China and then send finished products and therefore create jobs here in South Africa. We boldly speak about that, and because yesterday we had a brief interaction with the ambassador of the People's Republic of China to South Africa. We said that all the 53 countries in the African continent, including South Africa, have got tariff-free access to the People's Republic of China markets. And he specifically said that it must not just be mining or agricultural products. He was basically saying to the people of South Africa, to the South African government, build industries. We will give you access. It's not a far-fetched reality. The Federal Republic of Ethiopia is maximizing economical on its relationship with the People's Republic of China and has achieved an average of 10% economic growth in the past 10 to 15 years. But we have got a government that is concerned about palace politics and not focusing on what is to be done and what has to happen to the people of South Africa. We are aware, and all of us are aware, that in the next few weeks, South Africa will be assuming the presidency of the group of 20 countries, the G20. So the G20 is a platform of powerful countries in the world. They meet every year to pretend like they are talking about the problems of the world when they're talking about themselves. So they're going to gather here in South Africa this November to pretend like they're going to talk about the problems of the world, when majority of times there is nothing tangible that comes out of G20 summits. Despite that reality, and with doubts in our mind, we think that South Africa should use this 12 months presidency of the G20 to call for a global end to illicit financial flows and resources theft, which largely affects the African continent. South Africa must call for the end of destabilization of African countries, particularly the DRC, South Sudan, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe by Western forces. But South Africa must call for the long overdue reconfiguration of multilateral global institutions, including the United Nations, World Bank, IMF, and the World Trade Organization. In the case of the UN, when the UN was launched in 1945, there were only 2 independent African nations. Hence, Africa was wholly excluded from mainstream participation and mainstream power in the United Nations. We have got 54 nation states now. We have got more than 1 billion people. Why is it that in Europe you have got 2 members of the Security Council who come from Europe, but the entire African continent doesn't have a significant say in the systems and institutions of global governance? South Africa, despite it being coward in the current leadership, should call for the liberation of Western Sahara, must decisively isolate Morocco until the people of Western Sahara are given freedom, and should continue to demand for the end of hostilities in Palestine and condemn the racist state of Israel. Now, comrades, today we want to take this opportunity to appreciate the work which we took time to do as leadership structures and members of Africa Mayibuye movement. We did say that since September, when we announced the formation of our organization, we went to the ground to establish provincial, regional, sub-regional structures of Africa Mayibuye movement. There are very few sub-regions in South Africa where we do not have leadership structures of Africa Mayibuye movement. We also have appointed leadership structures of Mayibuye Women's Movement, Mayibuye Youth Movement, Mayibuye Students Movement. Mayibuye Medics is in existence. We have also established Mayibuye Law Clinic, which provides assistance to people who need legal assistance but do not have the immediate resources to could afford an attorney or a lawyer. Our social assistance programs have assisted a lot of communities. The students have been helping high schools in the application to go to universities of technology and TVET colleges. Mandaashu Workers Union of South Africa continues to be the sole voice of EPWP and CWP workers in South Africa. On the 3rd of November 2025, Mausa marched to the Department of Public Works to demand that all EPWP workers must be employed full-time with full employment benefits. And Mayibuye will never neglect the interests and aspirations of workers, particularly those marginalized by the system of exploitation. Mayibuye will also join into community struggles and battles that demand that the multinational companies in the natural resources sector must be forced to invest fully in the development of areas where they are extracting natural resources. No community in South Africa where minerals are extracted should have no decent school and no hospital, clinic, and decent infrastructure. So we as Mayibuye Africa will associate and be part of the struggles that will force the establishment to invest in our communities. We do all of these things because our clarion call is total freedom and emancipation now. We can't wait for us to be government to get people to benefit out of the natural resources of our country. We are going to engage in battles now and demand progress now. And we will lead all those struggles in all the areas in the Northern Cape, in the Northwest, in Limpopo, here in Gauteng, in KwaZulu-Natal, We will associate with all the battles that demand total freedom and emancipation now. Now, comrades, ladies and gentlemen, the people of South Africa, we are now honored to announce that on the 5th to the 7th of December 2025, the Africa Mayibuye movement will host its first national convention in Soweto, Johannesburg, in the Gauteng province. The national convention will be attended by delegates representing all the provinces of South Africa, all the regions and all the sub-regions. The national convention will also have delegations from the women, youth, students, from medics, from the law clinic, from Mawosa. Will also be attended by religious leaders, traditional leaders, royal leaders. We'll also have a delegation from Mandahashu Workers Union of South Africa. The aim and purpose of the National Convention is to solidify and strengthen the foundational documents and perspectives of Africa Mayibuye movement. The convention will also adopt a clear program of action and path to collective power in South Africa. And Africa Mayibuye movement will also hold and host a fundraising gala dinner on Friday, the 28th of November 2025 in Johannesburg, and will sell tables to people who wish to attend the gala dinner and or contribute to the movement. The details of the gala dinner will be communicated by the fundraiser general and treasurer general. The progress we have made in establishing structures within few months is testimony that Africa Mayibuye movement is a people's movement, a force for total freedom and emancipation now. We carry the mandate of the people of South Africa. We are a true movement of the people, and that is why we speak with boldness and confidence that we are a movement of the people that is going to bring about true freedom and emancipation now. We call on all genuine community activists, community leaders, civic organizations, community forums, and progressive institutions to join and associate with Africa Mayibuye movement. But we, however, want to humbly advise that those who have got intentions of self-enrichment, those who have got intentions of corruption and selfishness and greed must remain where they are. Our movement is not for those who want to use the organization for self-enrichment. Our organization is a people's movement joined by volunteers and servants of the people. In conclusion, we want to reaffirm the principles that guide our movement, which is Ubuntu, honesty and respect, sound and superior alternatives, collective prosperity, black economic solidarity, women's economic empowerment, respect of royal and traditional leadership, recognition and respect of faith leaders, strong opposition to corruption and anti-imperialism. Thank you very much, comrades. That is the statement that we had to give. Chairperson.